Today is Saturday, May 28th, and this is William Michael of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. In case you're not aware, the Classical Liberal Arts Academy is a program that I started in 2008 after I spent a decade as a private school classics teacher, through which I'm working to research, restore, publish, and teach the real classical Catholic curriculum that was studied and taught by wise men and saints through history. I pursued this project independently and privately because I wanted to pursue it in a pure way that wasn't affected by outside influences. I knew what needed to be done, and I wanted to do it without outside influence, without any pressure from others who might want it to be something that it doesn't need to be. And so I have worked to not only do the work of research and restoration, but I've managed to fund the project privately for 15 years now, and it continues to develop and grow and to successfully restore true classical Catholic education. I would argue that the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, which you can learn more about at classicalliberalarts.com, represents what's coming in Catholic education. I believe that as technology continues to develop, as communications continue to improve, as information becomes more and more easily accessible and inexpensive, the need for brick and mortar schools is going to continue to decrease. Any report of trouble in schools is going to accelerate the decisions of parents to stop sending children to schools. Why bother? Why deal with the problems when the list of benefits decreases year by year? In addition to that, more and more parents are able to work remotely. And so home education becomes more and more feasible for more and more families. For many families that choose to send children to private schools, both parents go to work, or we usually have a professional father making a lot of money who's able to afford tuition. But often both parents have to work, and sending the children to school is justified by the opportunity that parents are provided with to pursue their careers and quote unquote go to work. But as I said, as work becomes more remote from the office, that is, which means working from home, this whole model of business and family life that existed in the 1980s and 1990s all the way through until around 2020 or 2018, I guess, when the problems with COVID developed, all of a sudden this work and family arrangement is changing, and this is making the consideration of alternative modes of education more and more attractive to Catholic families. I've been self-employed from home for 15 years. And I know that more and more professionals are working remotely. And again, when I say remotely, I mean remote from the office, which means at home. So the arguments and the need for private schooling are decreasing, and they're going to continue to decrease over time. Technology is increasing. Information is more and more easily accessible. Better teachers are accessible through online courses. There are many benefits increasing on behalf of home-based education. And the reasons to send children to school, especially to private school, are decreasing and are going to continue to decrease. And I think they're going to decrease more rapidly as we go forward. Catholic schools need to be realistic about this. They need to realize that the market for private school education that existed 20 years ago no longer exists. They have to realize that this is going to continue to get worse for them over time. And they're either going to need to close the schools because they simply will not adapt and the schools will become unsustainable financially, or they're going to need to adapt to serve a part of the educational market. And I use that term just to be practical and clear about things. They're going to have to adapt to serve the realistic private school market that exists, not one that existed 20 years ago. And if they don't adapt, they're going to close. So I'd like to talk about how Catholic schools can adapt to serve the modern private school market. If you're a superintendent of schools or a Catholic school principal or even a Catholic school teacher, I want you to realize that you stand on one side of a spectrum with regard to Catholic education. If you're working in a brick and mortar local private school, you stand on one side of the spectrum. I stand on the opposite side of the spectrum. I represent the radical, far alternative from the 20th century brick and mortar Catholic school. I'm on the other side. I am one of the leaders in the development of home-based private education that makes use of modern technology to eliminate the need for formal schooling. And I'd like to stay on that far extreme because my position is not going anywhere. As we move forward, my position is going to become more and more ordinary. And the position of the school administrator or school teacher is going to become more and more obsolete. What school leaders and teachers should be asking, and I suppose parents as well who are going to need to send children to school, which is a number of parents that's going to be decreasing over time. What school administrators and teachers need to be asking is, how should we adapt to serve the needs of the Catholic community or even the larger local community? How can we adapt? to be useful in the 21st century. Because like I said, the Catholic school model of the 20th century is obsolete because of the dawn and development of the internet. And not just the internet, but of all communications media, especially wireless media that's continuing to develop rapidly, becoming faster and faster as bandwidth increases, more and more capabilities emerge. That's what's happening in the real world. More parents are working remotely. The economy is changing. The Ronald Reagan economy is a thing of the past. A modern, digital, home-based, web-based economy is becoming the norm and replacing that old brick and mortar or pen and paper economy. So how should schools adapt to be useful, to continue to have a purpose? They cannot simply continue doing what they did 30 years ago. It's simply not sustainable. The numbers are not reasonable. For example, in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we offer children a complete classical Catholic education from the comfort of their own homes for $10 a month. It costs $10 a month, $120 per calendar year for a child of any age to study with us full time. $120 per year. That includes access to all of the necessary study materials. That includes access to online quizzes and exams. That includes graded assignments, grade books, records, everything. It includes access to expert support by live chat or email. 12 months a year. $10 a month. This is available to Catholic parents in 2022. Our prices are going down because our ability to provide our services are becoming cheaper and more efficient as technology continues to develop. Last year, our student plan cost $25 per month. This year, our student plan is dropping to $10 per month. This is available to Catholic parents. And they're slowly learning about it. That's one of the advantages that the Catholic schools currently have, is that the knowledge of a program like ours is still unknown to most Catholic families. But it's becoming more and more known month by month. And parents can't believe it. And they're learning that the cost of their children's education is not thousands and thousands of dollars, but $120. And when they learn about this program that's available, about these study materials and services that are available, they ask, well, what else is there? What else do I need? Where are the costs? And they're shocked to learn that there are no other costs. And when they go from that discussion and look back at the Catholic school, when they go from the list of studies and courses available in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy and look back at what the Catholic school offers, it's incomprehensible how the Catholic school can think that that education is worth thousands of dollars per year. It's an inferior course of study. And it's many times the cost. And this is what Catholic schools need to think about. When it comes to quality of academic content, they cannot compete. Catholic schools cannot compete with a program like the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. They cannot compete. They cannot promote themselves based on academic quality, because the quality of our program far exceeds the quality of a Catholic school. They cannot promote themselves based on academic quality, because any parent who compares our program with what a local Catholic school offers will see that there's no comparison. There's no comparison. Everything that's available in the Catholic school is available at home, plus an entire classical study program is available on top of that. Catholic studies are available on top of that. There's simply no comparison. And yet, the Catholic school costs many times more than our program. What Catholic schools have to understand is that there are Catholic families who cannot manage the education of their children. They cannot physically, materially, they cannot manage it for some reason. They don't have the money to afford a parent to stay home, for example. They can't afford it. The family may have to send both parents to work in order to pay the bills. They need help with education. A mother may be going through her years of childbearing and can't manage the other children while she's pregnant and caring for infants. It may be too much for her to bear. And she really needs to send the children to school because she can't give them the attention and the supervision that they need to do well. She needs help providing her children with a Catholic education. There may be Catholic families where the parents are so focused on their career, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, they may have important professional work to do, and they would like to send their children to a private school. They have the money, but they would like to focus their attention on their professional occupations and outsource the education of their children to a trustworthy Catholic school. Catholic schools have to ask the question, who actually needs our school? Who actually needs a Catholic school? The Catholic schools have to think of who their market consists of. because it doesn't consist of the same people that it did 20 years ago. They have to think of specific examples of people in the community whom their school can serve, who need their school. They have to think of specific examples of families, of students that need a Catholic school. And they have to adapt the school to serve those specific families and students. They cannot simply continue offering the same programs, same services, in the same ways that they have in the past. They have to adapt to serve the people who actually need the help of Catholic schools. And if they don't do this, those families are simply going to look elsewhere, as many do. Many Catholics currently send their children to public schools because the Catholic school is simply not realistic. The tuition at the Catholic school is just disconnected from the real life of Catholic families. For the Catholic Church to be condemning contraception and abortion on the one hand, promoting reproduction in Catholic families, blessing large Catholic families, but then turning around and offering a menu of academic services that no one can afford, is one of the main causes of this current dilemma in Catholic schools. The Catholic schools can't identify who it is that needs their services. In many places, the Catholic schools are so focused on one specific socioeconomic group without reference to Catholicism that they're not even serving the needs of the Catholic families. They're serving the interests of a socioeconomic group that isn't even necessarily Catholic. We know that there are families that desire to send their children to Catholic schools, even though they're not Catholic, because they think that the discipline might be a little better at a Catholic school than a public school or a secular private school. They may think that the student body may be a little better. The culture may be a little better than another local school. But they're not there because it's Catholic. They're not there for Catholic education. They're there for these other benefits. They may think that a private Catholic school can help their child get admitted to a better college. They're not interested in the Catholicism of the Catholic school. They're interested in other matters. And the Catholic schools appear to be happy to focus on these interests rather than the essential mission of a Catholic school, which is to teach Catholicism to Catholic students. That should be the primary mission of the Catholic school, but it's not. One of the reasons why many families have chosen to homeschool is because they simply cannot send their children to the local Catholic school. The school is not designed to serve the Catholic population. The Catholic school is content being a 1990s preparatory school serving middle to upper class local families interested in a college preparatory program with sports and arts and sciences. It's not even focused on the mission of Catholic education. Anyone who works in Catholic schools knows what I mean, because I worked in Christian preparatory schools. And I know exactly what the demographic is for these schools. They're used by parents for college preparation. They're not primarily concerned with a Catholic mission in education. And if you look in the Catholic community, you'll find that many, I would even say most, Catholic families are not sending their Catholic children to the Catholic schools because the Catholic school is not even designed to provide a program that can be used by the Catholic people in the community. The Catholic market, as it were, and the Catholic school don't align. Many Catholic parents have homeschooled not because they want to, but because they have had to. You can ask them. Some of them, because of financial concerns, they simply can't afford to send their 6 children to Catholic schools. And many others have not been able to send their children to Catholic schools because of matters of conscience, because the schools are not focused on teaching the Catholic faith. The Catholic school is not even aligned with the needs of the Catholic community. And as time has gone on, this problem has pushed many Catholic families to homeschool, not necessarily because they willed to do so, but because they had to do so. It's pushed some to send their children to public schools. I would say many to send their children to public schools. For all the churches talk about its care for minorities and the poor, those children are going to public schools. They're not going to Catholic schools. The Catholic schools can't serve them. Our parish here in Monroe, North Carolina, has thousands of families, is largely Hispanic, and there's no Catholic school. It's the only parish in the entire county. There's no Catholic school. All of the Catholic children are either homeschooled, go to non-Catholic private schools, or they go to public schools. There's no Catholic school because it's as if the Catholic leaders can't even comprehend what a Catholic school would look like in such a community. It's financially unsustainable because nothing can be thought of outside of this model of the modern K-12 preparatory middle to upper class Catholic private school. So all the kids just go someplace else. Most of them Almost all of them really go to public school. So this is the dilemma of the Catholic schools. The problem is that this lack of commitment to the Catholic families has been met with this rapid development in technology and ability for remote learning, and homeschooling has come to supersede what Catholic schools can offer. Homeschooling has become so efficient that it's no longer even an issue. I've homeschooled all of my children. They enter college without a problem. There's no more questioning homeschooling. A homeschool transcript is readily accepted by selective colleges, by the U.S. military. No questions asked. The initial hesitation that homeschool families met with no longer exists. In fact, my children have even received preferential treatment because they've been homeschooled. And so initially, homeschool families had an uphill battle to fight if they couldn't send their children to a Catholic school. But homeschooling has rapidly improved and made efficient use of available technology and communications, while the Catholic schools have continued following a model that is becoming increasingly obsolete, increasingly unsustainable, increasingly unreasonable. I believe many families would be interested in sending their children to Catholic schools, but it's simply not an option, because the Catholic school is not designed to serve the needs of the Catholic population. If the Catholic schools would adapt, I believe that they could be very effective and become very popular. But I don't think that the people interested in Catholic school careers are interested in these adaptations. And so they persist in a failing model that just continues to run until the wheels finally fall off. And we can look and say, well, look, we're building a new Catholic school here. Yes, but 2 are closing. It's like when people say, oh, look at the Latin Mass parish. The Latin Mass parish is growing. No, it's not really, because it's simply taking people from other parishes. The growth is misleading. The new school construction is misleading. Half the number of students, half the number of students are attending Catholic schools today than there were in 1960. Half the number of students. Catholic schools are not growing. They're declining rapidly. And like I said, where we see new schools opening up, we're simply ignoring the reality that other schools are closing at the same time. Catholic schools have to adapt. And like I said, I'm not a critic of Catholic schools. I feel like my assessment of Catholic schools is practical and objective. I just don't think that they have a mission. I don't think they can explain what they're doing, who they're serving, and whether they're serving the people that they actually should be serving. And if they would reorient themselves towards the families in the Catholic communities and adapt to actually serve them in a way that's reasonable and effective in the 21st century, there could be a revival in Catholic education. But like I said, the administrators and faculty in Catholic schools are not interested in this adaptation. They like this idea of having 1990s jobs in Catholic schools, and it's simply not sustainable. No matter what anyone says, it's not sustainable. The Catholic population is not being served by the Catholic schools. They're not designed to serve the Catholic population. A model does not exist among Catholic schools that serves the actual Catholic population. And let's just make a comparison. In the 1880s, the Baltimore Council met to address the problem that public schools were developing throughout America, and they had a Protestant flavor, as it were. They were heavily influenced by Protestant thinking. The goal of the public schools was to Americanize immigrant children. And this Americanization was considered by the bishops of the Catholic Church to be harmful for Catholic children. And so the bishops of the Catholic Church in America gathered in Baltimore for the Baltimore councils. And they ordered all Catholic parishes to provide Catholic educational opportunities for the children of their parishes as a necessity. And that these Catholic schools needed to be available even if they had to be free, because this was essential to the mission of the Church, to provide for the education of Catholic children. And the reason why this is essential is because in the modern era, education is compulsory. We're not living in the 1600s, where children could just go work in the fields or work in apprenticeships or as servants of households. Children have to go to school in modern society, and therefore education is essential for Catholic children. We live in an age of compulsory K-12 education. Kids have to go to school. They have to be formally educated, usually through age 16 at least. And that's why this is an essential need in Catholic circles. And Catholic churches have to provide for the children in the Catholic community to have a Catholic education. Catholic pastors can't ignore this as if it's not important, as if it's not a priority. I really don't understand what could be a higher priority than the education of the children in the parish. Yes, we understand the need for faith formation, but to create this dualistic culture in the church where religion needs to be Catholic, but all of the rest of education doesn't need to be Catholic. When has that idea ever been held in Catholic history? This is a real error in modern Catholic education. Yeah, it doesn't matter if the math teacher is a non-Catholic, because that's just math. It doesn't matter if history is taught by a non-Catholic, because it's just history. It doesn't matter if biology or physics or chemistry are taught by a Catholic, because they're just natural sciences. That's totally false. These subjects must be taught in light of Catholic theology and Catholic philosophy. These subjects must be taught not only by Catholic teachers, but under the authority of Catholic teaching, which extends beyond mere theology. And Catholic schools are not doing this. They're not doing this in a way that actually provides for the living Catholic community. And this has to be considered a serious pastoral crisis. The Baltimore Council in the 1880s understood this and dealt with it. But the church in the 21st century is ignoring it, maybe because of all of the abuse scandals and the mess that created, and fear of lawsuits and future problems. But that's a problem that has to be overcome. The church can't simply say, because we dropped the ball in the 1960s and had all of these abuse scandals, we're simply not going to educate children anymore. That's not an option. The church has to step up to that challenge and overcome those failures with new efforts to do what's right and necessary. The church can't use the abuse scandals as an excuse to simply leave the children of the parishes to the world. It's a challenge that has to be overcome. The church also can't just leave this to the laity. The church just can't say, when I say the church here, I'm speaking in the sense of the clergy, the hierarchy of the church. A bishop can't simply say, well, I'm just going to leave education to the laity. That's irresponsible. I'm a layman. How can I do anything in the name of Catholicism without the participation and leadership of my bishop? As a layman, I'm happy to do the grunt work. I'm happy to do the work. But I need the leadership. I need the involvement. I need the blessing and direction and counsel of my bishop if I'm going to do any work on behalf of the Catholic faith for the Catholic people. This work can't be just delegated to the laity and ignored as if the laity is supposed to just take care of it. It's fine to have the laity manage this work, but the bishops still have to direct it and oversee it. Many of the religious communities are wandering with no purpose, while the works that were formerly done by religious are simply ignored. We look back into church history and we see Thomas Aquinas was sent to a Benedictine monastery for education when he was 5 years old. That option isn't even available to us in the modern church. Why not? Maybe this is one of the reasons why no one's interested in religious vocations. I have brought students of mine to visit monasteries, and the students have looked at me and asked, what do these monks actually do? What is their actual apostolate? What is their actual charism? What do they actually do? And I don't think many of the monks could answer that question. And meanwhile, the education of Catholic children is neglected. All this talk of social justice, and there's no provision, there's no plan for the education of poor Catholic children. They're sent to the public schools. Is this concern for social justice sincere or merely political? It looks to be political, because the Catholic schools don't seem to even understand the conditions in which poorer families live. And by poor, I'm not talking about starving families. I'm talking about families where a father, let's say a Catholic father were to work in a Catholic school. How much money would he make working in a Catholic school? $40,000 a year? And let's say his wife is home, pregnant and caring for infants. So they have one income. You're talking about a Catholic family with an income of $40,000. This is a poor family, relatively speaking. This is a family that certainly can't afford to send its children to a Catholic school. A self-employed Catholic man with a wife who is caring for children at home. Don't we believe that women should be able to stay at home and care for children? Well, then we have a single income family. What is the plan for Catholic education for the single income Catholic family, where the father isn't necessarily a lawyer or a doctor making $300,000 a year? What if he's making $60,000 a year? Do the math. What are his options for education? He'll end up homeschooling or sending his kids to a public school. He can't afford a Catholic school for multiple children. And if they do manage to make the Catholic school tuition payments, what are they getting for it? A secular high school curriculum? A high school diploma that's average in quality? What are they actually getting for that tuition? They're not getting a traditional Catholic education. They're not getting a high quality education filled with light of Catholic wisdom from saints and wise men of history. They're not receiving a Catholic education that is their heritage as Catholics. They're receiving a modern public school quality high school diploma and nothing more. The Catholic schools aren't addressing the needs of the Catholic population. And as I said, this is a pastoral crisis that has to be addressed. The Catholic schools have to adapt. They have to serve the Catholic community. And in order to do that, they have to develop a model for Catholic schools that actually addresses the needs of the Catholic population. Even families that are capable of homeschooling, I believe that they would be happy to be involved in a Catholic school community if that community actually made sense. They're not interested in sending their kids to a school with high tuition that gives the kid a public school quality high school diploma, where his classmates aren't even necessarily Catholics, but they're just a collection of kids from the neighborhood whose parents can happen to afford the school's tuition. That's not what they're looking for in sending their children to a school. The poorer families in the Catholic community don't even consider Catholic schools, don't even think about it. They know the public school is their only option. For all this talk of social justice, Catholic schools have to develop a more complex, more comprehensive, more contemporary plan for the education of children in the Catholic community. It has to be affordable. It has to make prudent use of available technology. It has to adapt to modern costs in education. It cannot charge premium prices for things that are available for pennies or even for free in modern circles. It can't try to make money off of things that are given away in secular circles. It can't focus on non-Catholic students who can pay tuition and neglect Catholic students who can't pay tuition and pretend that's evangelistic. That's not evangelistic. That's materialistic. Catholic children are not being evangelized and need Catholic education, and they're being neglected because they cannot pay the tuition at the current Catholic school. The Catholic schools have to adapt. They have to change. They have to address these modern changes in society and developments in technology. They have to serve the Catholic community that actually exists on the ground in the parishes. And education has to be a primary focus of parish life. It has to be. It's the primary focus of our life. What are Catholic parents more concerned about than the education of their children? This is simply not going to be a concern for the hierarchy of the church or for the clergy. What are we going to concern ourselves with instead? Our church provides no school for the children, and yet it tries to arrange a youth group for all of these kids who are effectively public school children. It gathers them together and sends them to the movies, gathers them together and sends them to a trampoline facility, sends them to a laser tag activity. But it neglects their whole education, their daily life, their community, their social life, completely neglects it and offers these silly after-school activities as some lazy attempt to appear to be concerned about the needs of the parish children who are struggling terribly. as the statistics prove. Look at the number of baptisms and compare it to the number of confirmations. That's what's happening. That has to be a primary concern for Catholic pastors. The sheep are being lost. This isn't a theory. This is a demonstrable fact. The sheep brought to the church for baptism are gone by the time their year of confirmation arrives. Where do they go? Doesn't someone have to be responsible for these sheep? And shouldn't that be a pastor? And I'm not complaining about priests at all. I believe priests can effectively address this issue. I simply think they need help. But I think they can address it, and I think they want to address it. Many of them are making efforts, but as I said, the efforts they're just not well informed. They're not practical. Catholic schools have to be reinvented to serve the Catholic community in creative ways, in a comprehensive way. They have to make use of available technology. They have to be flexible to recognize that different students are in different circumstances, and solutions can be provided for all of them because technology can help. And I'd like to talk briefly about how technology can help. When I taught in private schools, I was considered an elite teacher in the school. I usually taught special classes, SAT prep, higher level writing, literature, electives like rhetoric and disputation, and I taught the smart kids. I taught the Latin classes, the Greek classes, some history classes, but I was a teacher who worked with the smart kids, the motivated kids, the best kids in the school. But every once in a while, a kid would come along who really could do more, and I just didn't have the time or ability to work with him, to keep challenging him. And we're talking about teaching around 2000 to 2008, where there really wasn't the kind of technology and resource available that we have today. But what we would do is we would take these unique kids and we would simply supervise their studies in individualized programs. Sometimes we could find a web-based program, sometimes just another book for them to study, but we would simply supervise an individual student. He had to complete the normal course of studies, and these independent studies he did would be added on top of his curriculum, onto his transcript. He maintained community with his classmates. He didn't leave the Christian school to go to a better academic program. All of the students in the school enjoyed the benefits of having that special kid in our school. We kept the special kids with their peers, and it was great for everyone. But we adapted to serve the needs of our students. And we were limited in our ability to do so because, like I said, the internet was barely developing at that time. Today, we have a whole new world to deal with. What schools can and should do. The first thing that schools should do, and I'm going to say this just because it's true, the Classical Liberal Arts Academy has already done much of this work, and I offer it to schools to use. The schools need to have a curriculum, a course of studies that's available to all students 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. The curriculum should be available to students 24 hours a day. The school cannot lock up the curriculum and say you can only access the curriculum on academic calendar days. That makes no sense in 2022. Children need 24/7 access to a real Catholic curriculum. They can study year-round. And every student has a student account in a school database, in an LMS, a learning management system. Every student has an account. Every student has 24/7 access to the curriculum materials. And everything the student ever does is recorded in his student account for the entire duration of his time of study. The basic course of studies is available to all students. But beyond that, an incredible range of advanced courses that goes beyond the modern high school diploma program is also available. And students are encouraged, as the selective colleges and universities already encourage them, to seek the most challenging course of studies available to them. If a student is slow and has special needs, he can just take his time. If a student is average, he can work with a large number of his peers, moving through the curriculum. If a student is gifted or uniquely motivated, he can work at his own pace, branch out into higher studies, and go beyond the high school diploma requirements, beyond the grade level requirements. And yet he can stay with his peers. He can go play kickball with all the other 12-year-old boys. He doesn't have to leave the Catholic school because they can't serve the extraordinarily gifted student or the extraordinarily hindered student. The course of studies is available freely because if a student has no ability to afford tuition, he can access study materials digitally for free. If a parent wants to buy a copy of a book, the parent can do so. It's an optional cost that's really just a matter of convenience. But the course materials are available for free. Access to the lessons are available for free. And teachers are not needed to actually prepare lesson plans and direct all of the daily studies of children, which is incredibly expensive work for the school. The students can work on a curriculum that's already provided and established. And faculty that's needed is needed really for supervision and support, not for this work of inventing lessons. Much of the assessment can be handled electronically, as it already is, but in a more reasonable way. Assessment can be outsourced. It doesn't even need to be done by the staff of the school. Records can be kept off-site. The faculty can be cut to a fraction of what it currently is, eliminating all of the costs of unnecessary, obsolete staffing in the 21st century. And this is where we'll see the Catholic schools dig in their heels and refuse to adapt because they're more concerned with providing adults with jobs than providing Catholic education for Catholic children. And that's in my judgment, that's an evil that we have to deal with. The role of a school is not to create jobs for Catholic adults, or not even Catholic adults, non-Catholic adults. A school does not exist to create jobs for teachers. The school exists to provide education for children. We cannot let a concern about jobs force us to maintain a school model that children can't afford to attend. We cannot maintain this financially unsustainable, large faculty model of the modern K-12 school. That works in a public school where that faculty is artificially funded by the government. But that model does not work in a private institution. We have to allow technology and sustainability and academic quality to direct the model that the school should follow. We cannot promise people jobs or be afraid to let faculty members go at the expense of Catholic children. And this is one of the primary adaptations that Catholic schools need to make. It can't be a hangout for teachers and administrators and faculty members. It can't be a source of employment for adults. The school has to be primarily a place of learning for Catholic children. The unsustainable K-12 modern school model has to be abandoned, or the school simply will serve no purpose, as I've explained. A learning management system that contains the curriculum of the school, that provides a basic course of studies, that allows for self-pacing, where students with different abilities, which we all acknowledge them to have and yet don't provide for, can actually work at a pace that's effective for their own progress. Advanced students can advance. Slow students can take their time. All the students can enjoy the same quality of education at their own pace. The cost of education can be eliminated, and schools can focus on providing the services that Catholic families actually need. Catholic schools can focus on providing the Catholic culture that only a Catholic school can provide. Catholic schools can be staffed by devout Catholic adults who are effective in administering and supervising students using a program like this. There's no need to hire outside the Catholic community. There's no need to put the burden of lesson planning and curriculum development on the backs of a constantly changing faculty, where turnover can reach 30% or higher, and the entire curriculum and experience of the children is unstable because of the constantly changing faculty. The school can offer a stable, unchanging, or minimally changing curriculum. The benefits just multiply and multiply. Children can study at home. Children can study when they're sick. Children can study over the summer. They can study over winter break. They can study at night. They can get help at night if they're studying. Parents can access their records. Parents can get support. Parents can ask questions. The technology provides all of these benefits, and the Catholic schools are operating like it's still 1990. And like I said, they're not even serving the Catholic population. But they could. They could. But they have to adapt. They have to adapt. They cannot stubbornly persist following an obsolete and unsustainable model. They have to learn how to leverage available educational and communication technology to actually serve the Catholic community with Catholic education in a comprehensive, flexible, sustainable way. And they can, but they have to adapt. Now, we can't get into all of the details of what such adaptations would look like, but I can tell any school administrators that they're not complicated, they're simple. When I say that the schools need to become more complicated, what I mean by that is they simply need to realize that they can serve students through a diversity of different methods. They can have students who are present in the school for all school hours, whose parents work, or who simply can't supervise them. They can provide for hybrid students who are home part-time, at school part-time. They can provide for students to study year-round. They can provide for students who can only study during the academic year. By complicated or complex, I simply mean flexible. Not some lazy, monolithic program that's intended to be a one-size-fits-all model that really doesn't fit anybody. The ministry of the school, the mission of the school needs to be sincere and realistic. It needs to be concerned with the education of Catholic children, and not imaginary Catholic children, but the actual Catholic children in the community, with all of their different circumstances. And like I said, it can be done. It can be done, but it takes real leaders to manage and develop these school programs. It takes Catholic leaders who are called to this work and who have wisdom and who have zeal to provide excellent Catholic education to the actual Catholic community. It can't have a bunch of hirelings that are just looking for jobs in education. It can't be a source of income and benefits to adults who simply are drawing from the Catholic community for their own financial benefit. It has to be an apostolate of the Catholic Church. It has to be an apostolate of the Catholic laity. And there are lay people who will gladly do this work. I look at an organization like the lay Dominicans. And the lay Dominicans are often looking for opportunities to serve the church. Many of them work in modern Catholic schools, but they could do so much more. And they're willing to. All these homeschooling parents are invested in education, and they're not necessarily interested in homeschooling. It's simply their only option. They would be happy to help, to volunteer in a Catholic school that was actually concerned with the needs of all of the children. The nuns of the early 1900s are not available. They came from immigration. They're not available. We can't simply maintain a model that took a massive influx of nuns from Europe for granted and pretend that when that flood of religious sisters and nuns stops, we're just going to keep going with the same model and ignore it. We have to realize that that change has to be addressed. We can't imitate the public school. We can't try to look like the public school, which is what I think Catholic schools like to do. They like to pretend that they're just big modern educational institutions. They try to copycat everything the public schools do without any of the public funding. The Catholic schools have to become truly Catholic schools, schools for Catholics, and not for a portion of the Catholic community, but for all of the Catholic community. And the good news is that they can, if they're willing to adapt.